Okay, so we are currently looking at a job within our system that has been started. So you see on this screen under the work order, we have our operations and our materials broken out. So we have a status as these operations have been completed. They're flagged green. The ones that are flagged yellow, these have been started but have not yet been marked as finished. And then we've got some outside operations that have yet to be started. On the material side, we've got two materials that were issued, but then we have other materials that maybe have been used but haven't been issued throughout the system, or that we have found out are obsolete so that they won't be issuing these to the job, and maybe we brought in a replacement part for that. So different variations of what we want to be tracking from this work order view. Again, if I click on the work order in this tree, I see those operations and materials broken out in a table format. And if I hit edit, I could, on an unengineered job, we could edit the operations and the materials here that are required. So actually, I'm going to go to this other work order that has not yet been engineered. It has not been released to the shop floor. And here we could change the amount of time on a given operation. If we need more time in fabrication, we'd be able to edit that, the amount of hours here, and how we format these tables. We can move those columns up. So if you're constantly changing the amount of time, or you're adding operations, you're changing material quantities, we can adjust these views so that that becomes an easier process. But today we're going to be going through tracking actual costs. We're going to be issuing materials to a job, as well as applying labor to this job as well. And by the end of it, we'll hopefully get some actual costs and actual production hours on this job. So the first thing I'm going to do with this one will be to release it to the shop floor. This allows for this job to have material issues and operations. So before it's released, you won't be able to apply labor to it, and you won't be able to issue materials. That will need to be released. And then the other thing is we have these scheduled resources. So this has already been scheduled. And that way, when we go to the shop floor app, we will be able to find the specific operation that we want to clock into based on our scheduled resource. And a scheduled resource can be an employee, a department, a resource group as a department, or as um, a piece of a work center, like an install truck, for example, or a paint room, whatever kinds of departmental factors that you have on your shop floor, we can schedule based off of that. But today we are going to mainly focus on applying actual costs by issuing materials, applying labor, and then tracking those actual costs to show the fully rounded job costing function of our system. So with this one, we've released this. So the two different ways that we can apply actual costs to any given job is through the main system, or we could go to the shop floor app and see how those on the shop floor could, while clocking in, they could clock into these operations as they go, and have an actual real-time ticker to track the applied time to a specific operation on a job. So first, I'm going to show you the manual way of doing it within the system. For companies that aren't using the shop floor app and don't have all of their employees clocking in through Kimco, what you would first want to do is, for the labor side of things, we have this labor dashboard that I'm going to open in a new tab. And on this dashboard, to apply time, we would hit this time card entry link. Here I'm going to add a time card batch. We have some that are still open, but I'm going to start fresh and create a new one. Put in today's date. And depending on how much you're applying labor, you would be able to create batches for every specific day. You'd be able to pull in time cards from the shop floor app and reconcile them, and then approve them for eventual posting. For this example, I'm going to start by creating a manual time card though. So I'm going to hit save. I've created this batch, and under time cards, I'm going to hit add item. I'm going to pull in myself as an employee here, and I'm going to hit save. So now within this time card batch, I've created a time card. If I click into this, it'll bring me to the second layer, to the time card itself. Here is where we track the hours for payroll purposes. So just for clocking in and clocking out for your entire day, we would be able to see a standard amount of total hours. I created this manually, but it did pull in some system organizational settings, knowing that we have 8-hour days. We have a 1-hour unpaid lunch time period. Maybe that's a half hour for lunch and 2 15-minute breaks. But then we see our total amount of payroll hours. But the third tier are these time card entries. And these are the actual applied labor, whether it's indirect labor or we have direct labor to a job, as well as some other options here as well. But I'm mainly going to focus on either indirect labor and production. So on this time card entry, I'm going to select production and select the work order that we were working through. So for this example, this one we have released. So it should show when I search for it, 18549. And here is that work order. From there, I would select the operation that I was working on, or if I'm the office administrator and I get time cards or notes from the production floor, I would select the operation that the employee was working on. So let's say I was working on design review, and we either can have the actual start and end times for a specific job. So if I was working on this all morning and I wanted to do from 8 to 11:30, it would automatically calculate my labor and burden hours. But if we are more just focused on the time elapsed, I can also just input my time elapsed either just through burden or with labor and burden. If we do have a setting where labor can just, or burden can automatically calculate based off of your labor as well. But in this example, I chose indirect as my work type. And that what that does is it allows me to select the indirect work codes that we have in the system, indirect labor codes. So we have some basic examples in here like meeting, maintenance, machine down, cleaning. We also see things like training, and some other examples as well. I'll just hit maintenance and pretend like something went down, and maybe the afternoon I had to spend just working on a broken machine or a busted truck, whatever the case. So now I've filled out my time card entries for my time card, and I'm going to hit save. And what that is going to do is it's now going to calculate my sum of entry hours as well as my sum of indirect hours and be able to show that. If we had used the shop floor app when we pulled this time card, we would be able to see the shop floor times as far as the clock in and clock out time. And I will show you that example here in a little bit. So I'm going to go back to the batch, and we're not going to apply this yet, but now we have one time card in here with my time, again, showing that I was clocked in from 8 a.m. until 4 p.m. And then if we clicked into that, we would also see the time card entries there as well. So before posting, the other option would be to use the shop floor app. So I'm going to go into the shop floor through this link on the main menu. I'm going to open a new tab, and I'm going to clock in for the day using our shop floor app. The first place it brings you to after signing in is to this main clock in stage. So what this green button does is when I hit clock in, that will create within the system this time card record. So now I am clocked in. It shows clocked in as of 1:15 p.m. I was a little late today. Apologies. But from here, I can either start indirect, I can start production manually here, or I can just go to my work queue, depending on how your scheduling structure is worked out. Here I can choose that scheduled resource that I showed earlier, and if I were an employee and I was the scheduled resource, I could just pull up myself as the resource and it would show me all of my allotted work based on the schedule. For now, we're just looking through the resource fab sign, and if I go and confirm, this operation here, the second operation fab sign is under the scheduled resource. So I should be able to find that by coming in here. We have quite a few, so if your queue gets flooded, you can also search here, and that brings my operation to the top. So I'm going to hit start production. That's going to bring me to this start production screen. From here, I'd be able to see any shop notes. I'd be able to add notes, so there could be communication back and forth from the shop floor employee to the shop floor manager or to whoever else needs to be tracking within the main system here. And if there were materials for this specific operation, I would be able to issue them from this screen as well. For now, we're just going to be focusing on labor, so I'm going to hit start. So now I'm actively working on this operation. It shows in my active operations. I could go in and clock into multiple. The only thing I can't do now is start indirect labor because the system will, if you are applying indirect labor, you can't be working on active jobs at the same time. You can work on multiple operations at the same time, and the system will split that labor depending on how you want it to. If you want it to apply that time evenly across all, or if you want to apply just the burden evenly across all, we have parameters within the system to help customize that to however you're currently job costing. So this is ticking now for us. So I'm actively applying time to this. But while I'm on the shop floor app, I can also show how to issue materials from this system. So if I go to the material tab, I have a lot of different material options as far as what I want to be doing. If I'm just issuing it to a job, I would use one of these. If I were to be receiving a purchase order to a job, I maybe would be using the receive PO. If you were shipping out materials and you needed to generate pack slips, you could do that as well. But today we're just focusing on issuing to a work order. So within this work order 18549, we have multiple materials. So first I will show how to issue just one of them through our issue screen. Okay, and then from here I would select the work order that I'm applying this to, 18549. And here I have the option to either select a material from our bill of materials or required materials, or if I had to use something that was not listed on the job, I could select this miscellaneous issue box and select a part from our part listing, or do an abstract part issue as well. For this example, however, I'm going to select a material from our listed materials, and with that, essentially all I need to do is if you do have location tracking on, these can automatically be populated if you are lot tracking as well. But the quantity here, I would just confirm the quantity. It would show on this screen as well what we have for on-hand values and what is required here. If this part had already been issued partially, we'd be able to see the quantity remaining from the original quantity required and the quantity issued already over here. Otherwise, I'm just going to hit this issue box, and that would apply the material or the part to that job. So now I'm going to go through the mass issue button here, where we can issue multiple at the same time. So I'm going to pull in that work order one more time. And right now it's got a date required that I know there's some filters that we don't want in here. So I'm going to clear this. And you see we'd be able to issue across multiple different jobs here, but I am going to add that filter back. So we're only looking at one job. If I hit search, now we see only the materials for this specific job. I'm going to select all of them, and I'm going to put an issue date of today in. I would confirm the quantities. I could also see the same information, quantity remaining, quantity already issued, as well as inventory values if we were tracking how much we still had. These are all considered non-stocked parts in our system. So these values are not as useful for this exact example, but that would show the actual inventory on hand amount there. Otherwise, I'm going to hit select, and that is going to issue those 7 materials all at the same time. These same options are available in the main system to issue one at a time or to issue multiple at the same time. Before we get back into the main system, I'm going to stop my applied time to that specific operation. As you can see here, when we're issuing multiple parts with large quantities, it can take a little bit to actually run that issue. But now we're back into our shop floor app. That issue has been processed. And if I go back over to labor, I'm still clocked into that operation. So I'm going to clock out now. And when I click on that operation, it brings me to the stop production screen. This quantity completed, there was a quantity required of 2 because we're making 2 raceway signs. So when I put in the quantity completed here, it automatically will mark this operation as production complete. If we wanted to attach photos or review files that were uploaded within the main system, like a traveler or sketches, whatever it is, they could be accessed here or uploaded here. This is a two-way access to your files, as well as adding any custom notes showing that this has been completed, for example, or if there was an issue and we are scrapping it, you can also add further context into whatever you are showing in your status. Otherwise, I'm just going to hit stop, and then I'm going to clock out, and this is going to stop my actual time card, the one for payroll purposes. So I'm going to hit clock out, and now I'm going to sign out, and I'm going to go back into the main system. So now we're back in this work order in the main system. And here, if I hit expand all, you see we've got the status of that one operation that we just clocked out of. This has been marked as complete. All of these materials are showing as fully issued. And so if we go to the job cost screen, we should see actual costs populating, right? So all of the material costs are showing. There's a very little amount of labor because we were only clocked in for a few minutes, but that does calculate out the burden as well as labor and gives us the cost total down below, where we can start tracking our estimated versus actuals and then our planned versus actuals through this view. If I go back to that time card batch now and I hit this, I'm going to refresh this screen. But what I want to do is show that I'm going to pull that time card that we just created through the shop floor app into this batch as well. So I hit the get time card button over here. And now if I go back to that time card tab, you see the other time card populate within this batch as well. So this one is the one that we created already. This has not been processed or anything yet, but this shop floor time card, which we had just clocked out of, this is showing as processed. Now, if we go in here, we can change it, adjust it. We can add time. We can edit the time that's already in here. So if we want to round this out and say that this is actually just a full hour, we can do so. We could hit save. And now the time card would reflect that. So if I go back to the batch and we are completed with reconciling all of our employee labor, whether that's through manually adding the time cards or pulling them so that we can just approve them and post them. Either way, we pull it into the batch. And the next step would be to hit the print edit list. From here, we'll just run this report. Every time that you post labor and post a time card batch, it requires that you print the edit list so that there is a time-stamped document and a file, essentially, or an attachment that shows what the labor was when this was posted. At any given time, you can create a new batch and check this include reviewed time cards and pull these time cards, even if they've already been posted, we would still be able to pull them into a new batch, make further edits, and then reapply them. For this example, I checked that the print edit list looked good. That is now attached on this batch on the little paper clip. We see that here, and it is ready to be applied. So now I've hit apply batch, and that is running the process in the background. Looks like it already gave me the notification. Time cards have been processed. So those time cards have now been processed. If we went back to the work order, we would see the new revised costs as well from that new time card. So now we have this one started, and what that actually did is shows that this one is not completed. So it overrid it to show that this is actually still just been started. But if we go to the profitability tab on the work order, we would see the new actual costs on labor, as well as the cleaner view here at the job under the costs tab here. So this has been updated, and if I ran my cost analysis report, we would be able to see all of the material issues and all of the labor entries. So I will hit run report here, and that will generate a document on this screen for this work order with all of my operations listed out with the estimated and actual amount of hours, as well as the estimated and actual costs. We see the two time cards that I had created, one manually and one through the shop floor app. We would see any outside costs here as far as outside services and direct purchases. But then here on the materials side, we see all of the material issues that we had just created. The actual material issue record is showing, and then we've got our estimated versus actual costs and estimated versus actual part quantities. All right. The last thing to show on that would be the issue, inventory issues or material issues through the main system. We won't need to spend much time on here. They are fairly the same as you saw in the shop floor app. So here, inventory issue, I would add an inventory issue if we were just doing a singular one. And we've got the same fields that we did in the shop floor app. So I would be able to select the work order. And we still have our materials here, but if we chose one, we would see the quantity already issued. We would see that there is 0 quantity remaining here. So let's not use that as an example. I'm actually going to check this miscellaneous issue and pretend like we had to use a specific part that maybe wasn't listed on the work order. So for that, I could pull in any part from our part listing. Again, this part location can be automated. And let's just say for this, we are going to be applying 10 of these bracket sets. I would hit issue, and now that will be applied to the job as well. Before going back to the work order to show that, I will briefly just show in the main system the mass issue inventory as well. So here, again, one last time, I could put in the work order number here, hit search, and here, because there are no more materials listed as required, it's not showing anything. But the main view of this is the exact same that we saw on the shop floor. So if I wanted to select across different jobs, I could do so here. And we could apply them, put in an issue date, and keep moving forward. But we've already issued all of the materials that were planned. We did just add a part, so I'm going to refresh this. And now we have one more down here. If I go to it, we see that this was an added material because it was a miscellaneous issue, but it is now a listed material on this work order. So that is the basics of the inventory issues as well as labor entry, applying those to jobs. And how we would job cost that at the work order would be to use the cost analysis as well as the cost tab. But then at the sales order level, if we wanted to roll it up, I could go to the sales order and we could run either the detailed job cost analysis for multiple sales lines. So that same report that I had open, but for multiple different jobs to see the details of all of those different jobs, or we could use the sales order cost analysis and have a view of the overall costs rolled up. This is a standardized view that is currently being improved upon right now. So I'm going to just quickly show on this view the rolled up values. So if we came over and scrolled through, we'd see the total actual costs, total material cost, total production costs, right? We've applied all of these costs to just one of those jobs. The other one is not showing any actuals, but we would be able to see the total amounts of variances, costs, hours across multiple jobs under any given sales order. And again, this view is currently going to be improved upon and changed here soon. So that is the majority of what I wanted to cover today.